It's been a while since I uploaded, but I really haven't felt like it. I've been getting ready for baseball season, and now it is almost here. Technically, it is here. First game was yesterday. And before the Braves play and before the season really kicks off, I want to get out my kind of preview and maybe some predictions for this year. It's not going to be a Braves exclusive video, though I am definitely going to talk about them, as that is my team. Um, and I'm just going to go kind of position by position and talk about, some players I think could do good, who I have on my fantasy team, and how I think the Braves players at that position will perform. Starting with first base. I think the best first baseman, there's been a lot of talk of, is it going to be Kurtz? How much of a leap is he going to take in that second year? And while I think he's going to be very good this year, I think he's going to continue to hit a lot of home runs. He's going to be great in a full season. I like Vladimir Guerrero more still. What I saw between the postseason, between the World Baseball Classic, and just knowing what kind of player he's been, I do still think he is the best first baseman, and I think he will continue to hold that. On my fantasy team, I have what I think is the third best first baseman, that being Pete Alonso. Alonso is going to continue to be the guy. I think in New York, he was not getting as much of that hype of being the guy now that they had Soto. They had Lindor was great last year. Alonso is now going to be, at the very least, the second best bat in Baltimore. The best bat if Gunnar Henderson doesn't get it together. And I like that upside for him. I do think Matt Olson will be very good this year. Obviously, I mean, he's going to be one of the two players on this team that's going to consistently stay healthy. That him and Bryce Elder. And only one of those is a net positive for the team. With him playing every day, obviously he's not getting injured, but, on this team that is inevitably going to have 10 key injuries by June, it's going to lead to pitchers just playing, to pitch more and more around him, and I do think that could hurt him a little, but he's obviously still going to be great. He's still going to be a top 5 first baseman at least this year, as he's been for the past few years. At second base, I actually don't think Ketel Marte will be the best player at that position this year. That's what he's consistently been for what feels like a longer time than it might have actually been. But he's just been so good, so consistent on a Diamondbacks team that has legit been the exact opposite. I think, though, that Jazz will leap over him. This is a take that I feel like has been thrown around a lot over the past few seasons, back when he was in Miami, and then really last year when he hit New York. And he did play very good last year. He was injury-riddled. I had him in fantasy last year. And I have him in fantasy this year again. Last year, I traded him for Will Smith at our trade deadline. I don't plan on doing that again. But Jazz is in a contract year. And contract years for MLB players are huge. Especially now, lockout coming up. They really want to earn their money and obviously hope there's no lockout, but there's going to be. And just try to earn as much as you can. And I think Jazz is really going to play like a guy getting ready for a contract. And I think that will just make him better. He's already going to keep getting better. He's going to be one of those guys that pitchers are going to pitch to because of, Aaron Judge being in that lineup. And maybe, possibly Ben Rice taking a big leap. I think he probably can. I mean, he's got the ability. And overall, I just think Jazz is going to perform like I feel like the Jazz everyone talks about. For a couple years now, especially when he was in Miami, people would talk about Jazz Chisholm like he was Bobby Witt. And he really has not been at that level, but I could absolutely see him being there if he really needed to. He's who I have in fantasy, and he is my number one second baseman. Similar story for third base. I have on my fantasy team the number one player that I have at the position, which is Jose Ramirez. I love Junior Caminero. He was on my fantasy team last year. He's part of the reason I traded Jazz Chisholm, because I was playing Jazz at third. But ultimately, I don't know how much moving to Tropicana is going to hurt Caminero. I know it is a dome, which is helpful, but it is also not a spring training facility. I still think Junior is going to be a top 2 third baseman, but I still like J-Ram. I know he had a bit of an off year for J-Ram standards, but an off year for J-Ram standards is a career year for most third basemen. And it just truly shows how dominant he is and how dominant he is going to stay. real quick, I forgot to talk about Ozzy Albies. My bad. I do think Ozzy will bounce back after not a good year last year. The Braves as a whole did not have a good year last year. A lot of batters like Michael Harris struggled, especially in the first half. The difference was Michael bounced back quite a lot, whereas Ozzy really stayed at the same level all year. Not good. I do think he plays a little more like the Ozzy that we're used to. I still don't think he's going to hit the highs of like 2023. But I think he will be serviceable enough. Obviously, I don't want to replace him. I don't see an option in our farm that can replace him well. I still don't think Nacho is fully developed or may even fully develop for a while. And that just concerns me. There have been rumors, should we move on from Ozzy? I don't think we should for, obviously, again, the irreplaceable, but also if we want to keep Acuna around, which, please, AA, pay Ronald Acuna. Please. If you want to pay him, though, it's going to be a lot easier if you have a guy like Ozzy around because they're such close friends. It already hurts that we got rid of Arcia, even though that was necessary. If you want him to want to stay, you have to keep players that he enjoys playing around on the team. And him and Ozzy are definitely very close friends. Back to third base. The Braves' third baseman is Austin Riley, debuting a new, much longer hairstyle this year. And it's very similar to Matt Olson. I think he's going to continue to be a guy that produces at a similar level, hopefully with better injury luck than he had last year. Because if he can stay healthy, he's a top 5 third baseman. But that is heavily dependent on him staying healthy, and I think he can. I think the Braves as a whole just have to get lucky. This team has to get lucky. We have to roll the dice right. It has not started off well. I knew it was baseball season when I woke up and my arm hurt, but you also know when you start getting notifications that 3 starting pitchers have been put on IL. We're going to be rolling out Bryce Elder for another year in the rotation. But nonetheless, maybe the luck comes back. It's not impossible. And maybe Austin can put together at least, 150 games is what I'm hoping for. I know Walt Weiss came out and said, he doesn't want these guys playing 150 games. He wants them taking a lot of rest. And I like that. Obviously, for what this team's been through, that's necessary. But I do think that's obviously going to hurt fantasy baseball production. And I think in general, you worry a little bit about rust. I would much rather have rust than injuries. Throw that out there. But I'm just hoping Austin can stay healthy because it would really, really help the team overall. He's such a X factor that really you don't think about it too much when he's there. And then you realize it when he's gone and we're playing not usually Nacho Alvarez at third base. Occasionally guys like Gio Urshela. Shortstop. The best shortstop is still Bobby Witt. I feel like I don't even really need to explain myself there. He's just so good. They're moving in the walls at Kauffman. This is irresputable. He is absolutely the number one shortstop. I have in fantasy Ellie De La Cruz and Trey Turner, both of which I think are top 5 options. Ellie, I don't know why I've seen a lot of people saying that Ellie's going to take a step back this year. I've seen a surprising amount of people saying that, he's going to fall off a little. He's just not going to be that guy this year for them. Why? Because he didn't have 50 stolen bases last year? He's still Ellie De La Cruz. He's still very, very good. He's not a great defender, but he's never been that. He's still going to be the second best shortstop. And Trey Turner, do I think he's going to be last year's Trey Turner? Probably not. No, that's going to be very difficult to replicate. I believe he won the batting title last year. That's very difficult to replicate unless you're Luis Ariz. But I do still think he's going to be a top 5 shortstop. And as for the Braves shortstop, I don't even know who it's going to be for opening day. It was supposed to be Ha-Seong Kim, which I don't love. He's fine, but, it's just Arcia. And then he got hurt. Now it's Mauricio Dubon or Jorge Mateo. What happened? Why couldn't it have been Dansby? Why couldn't we have paid Dansby? Why couldn't Arcia have not sucked? All of these would have been great outcomes, but we just can't have that. So shortstop's probably going to continue to be a massive hole on this team for several years to come. Unlike catcher, which is a position the Braves have been very good at, and I do think that Cal Raleigh will still be the number 1 catcher in the MLB. He obviously he'd been very good. I feel like a lot of people are not mentioning how good he was prior to, breaking out last year. Granted, you hit 66 home runs. People are really only going to want to talk about that. But, I mean, he was, to me, the second best catcher behind William Contreras, who I now have at 2. Is he going to hit 60 home runs again? Probably not. That's, again, very difficult to replicate. But I still think he's going to be the top catcher. I do still really like William Contreras, but I don't think he's the number one catcher anymore. He'd been that for so long, it felt like, and now he finally gets dethroned because he can't hit 60 home runs in a season. As for the Braves, obviously, as I said, this is a position that Atlanta has thrived at for years and years. Just one of the strongest points in this organization between William Contreras, between Sean Murphy, and now Drake Baldwin. Murphy is starting hurt, which means a lot of it is going to be on Baldwin. Very similar to last year, except Baldwin's had a full year to develop now. I do have concerns about a sophomore slump for Drake, obviously. I think that's always a reasonable concern coming off a Rookie of the Year. And I don't know if he's going to be as productive early, but I still absolutely think he is going to continue to develop well. I think when Murphy comes back, that's going to help him a lot because he's not going to be playing every day. I know he's probably still not going to play every day, but at the end of the day, I think you have to play him more often than you would if you have Murphy because Jonah Heim is just not a valid, it's too much like Chadwick Tromp for me, which we were not letting him have many playing days. On my fantasy team, I have Hunter Goodman, who is quite possibly the only bright spot on the Rockies that I can think of off the top of my head. I genuinely cannot name you another valid start in Colorado. Last year, you could justify Brenton Doyle, Ezekiel Tovar. Tovar spent half the year on IL, and Doyle just sucked. Maybe you can justify Tovar, but shortstop's always such a stacked position. There's so many better guys available. And Doyle looked so bad last year. That was atrocious. Maybe it was just a Colorado thing, but he was so bad. And really, to me, Hunter Goodman's the only bright spot on that team. He did play really well last year, especially at the catcher position. And I do like what he brings. I think he's a solid option overall. Do not sleep on him this year at catcher. He could very well cement himself as a top 5 catcher, maybe even higher if he puts together another season, even if the Rockies are still the Rockies. In the outfield, I do think Ronald Acuna is a top 3 outfielder. A lot of people are, disrespecting him, disrespecting the core of the Braves. He's up there with Soto. Obviously, Aaron Judge is still, to me, the best outfielder. I do not get any arguments against that. He is very... I mean, he's coming off of an MVP season where he hit 50 home runs and batted 320. There's no reason to me that people should be saying, well, Juan Soto's better because he can be better. But because maybe if everything goes right, he can be better. No. Juan Soto was very good last year, and I think I'm not going to call people crazy for saying Juan Soto's better than Ronald Acuna. I'm biased, and I'm willing to admit, they're very even skill levels. The issue that I see for Soto this year, though, is they lost their base running coach to Atlanta. Soto is not going to be stealing as many bases this year, which was something that a lot of people were pointing out was really good last year for him, even in that, I don't want to say slow start, because for a lot of players, his start was elite. But for Juan Soto standards, for making the most money in baseball, it was a little bit of a slower start. I think he'll be able to fix that a little, but I do definitely think that Soto is not the best outfielder like a lot of these Mets fans are trying to claim. He's not. It is still Aaron Judge. I do think Acuna is still a top 3 outfielder, though. My fantasy outfield, I have J-Rod, who was on my team last year, Jackson Chourio, who was on my team last year, and Wyatt Langford, who was on my team last year, and James Wood. James Wood is kind of playing my DH right now. All of those guys I think are going to be really good. The fact that people are still not talking about Wyatt Langford as one of the top young stars in baseball amazes me. I get the Rangers are the AL version of the Giants, where they are the pinnacle of mediocrity and not many people really talk about them, but they won a World Series 2 years ago and now have an incredibly bright future with for this young outfielder that is playing incredible baseball when he gets on the diamond, but no one talks about it because the team kind of sucks. And I think the Rangers could take a big step forward this year. Who knows? But I like Langford a lot. I will always, until someone proves me otherwise, believe Wyatt Langford is one of the best young stars, and he deserves more recognition. Now on to pitching. Starting pitchers. Not a strong suit right now for the Braves outside of basically just Chris Sale. I wish we had Spencer Schwellenbach, but we don't because he's hurt. The best pitcher in baseball, surprise, 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 is Tarek Skubal. Back-to-back Cy Youngs. I understand Paul Skeens is Paul Skeens, but ultimately you cannot argue against Tarek Skubal. Also, I am recording this after just seeing Paul Skeens get pulled from a game where he didn't even pitch a full inning. I'm not saying it's reflective of Paul Skeens' season. Not at all. He could totally not give up another run all year. It's possible. But there's reason for concern, and I just like Tarek Skubal more. I'm not counting Ohtani for this section either. Ohtani gets his own section. He's obviously the best overall fantasy baseball player. Play him at DH if you want. I'm not doing DH rankings. Half the players in the league are eligible at DH. Skeens is also very good. Garrett Crochet is also very good. Chris Sale for the Braves is obviously the ace. It feels like I was given some warnings by Red Sox fans that was like, oh, Chris Sale's going to miss all of this time. You know, he's not worth it. Yes, he's had an injury both years he's been here, but they've been like strangely off to the side injuries, like back spasms before a wild card series where we were already going to get smacked around, and then breaking his ribs at the end of the year, making an awesome catch. Okay. I don't know what it's going to be this year. His like ear gets chipped in the opening day game and he misses a week. But, oh no. And I do think as much crap as people are giving AA over a dumb decision to let Max Fried go, which sucks because he's been healthy for the first time ever, I do think that right now Chris Sale is a better pitcher than Max Fried. I'm not saying we couldn't have both because we traded Vaughn Grissom for Chris Sale, but I mean, if I had to pick between them, I think I would pick Sale. On my fantasy team, I kind of went with a strategy of like, I don't really care about starting pitcher that much. I'd rather build a lethal lineup and then grab pitchers later, which is what I did. So I got Kyle Bradish, who I think is going to be great. I think he will end up, whether it is at the beginning of the year or by the end, because I do think people are talking about Trevor Rogers as the Orioles ace, but I think Bradish will have it by the end of the year if he doesn't already. I got Nolan McLean. I know he did not play great in the World Baseball Classic game. Obviously, it was not his fault that we lost. It was Mark DeRosa and Garrett Whitlock, mainly Mark DeRosa. Cannot believe the Braves almost hired that guy. But, I mean, McLean did give up 2 runs, but it was also against a great World Baseball Classic team. I'm not too worried about it. I think he's going to be pretty good. I also then have Tyler Glasnow and Emmett Sheehan. Or is it Sheehan? I don't know. But both of them, Dodgers pitchers. The Dodgers are just such an easy team where it's like, yeah, you want to take players from them because it's an easy win for their pitchers. When you have the Dodgers roster, your pitchers are going to be easier to get wins, sorry. I also have Chase Burns, which it makes me so mad that ESPN doesn't have him for reliever eligibility. He's going to be really good. I don't know if he's going to be a starter or a closer by the time he hits his prime, but I could see him as either. He just fits that archetype. As for reliever, closer, whatever you want to call it, Mason Miller now has cemented himself at the top of that list. Last year, entering, again, everyone, it's got to be Emmanuel Clase. It's got to be Emmanuel Clase. And then Clase bet on himself, literally, and it did not work. He's gone. And that just kind of opens a hole of like, all right, Mason Miller, we've kind of expected you to take over this spot. We didn't think it would be this way, but we expected it. You could make an argument for Edwin Diaz just because he's got the single easiest save opportunities of any player, but I just don't like Edwin Diaz's stuff as much as I like Mason Miller's stuff. You know, like 104 mile per hour fastball at the corner of the strike zone in a wild card game. Don't ask what happened in that wild card series, but he threw that cool pitch. I don't know any other reason to care about that. As for my team, I have Aroldis Chapman and Ryan Helsley. I don't know what happened to Ryan Helsley last year, but I'm just going to choose to believe that it's not his fault and it's the Mets' fault and we should blame everything on the Mets and not at all that Ryan Helsley is actually old. Solely because he's on my fantasy team. I'd absolutely not be picking him if he was not the only reliever available. It was him or I don't even remember. I think Trevor Meagle, who's getting demoted from his closer role. I'll take Helsley. As for the Braves, the closer is still probably going to be Raisel Iglesias, which I don't hate. I mean, obviously we brought in Robert Suarez, who I believe at the deadline led the league, or at the very least the NL in saves. And then the Padres went and traded for what many considered to be the nastiest stuff guy out of a pen in baseball. Still cannot believe they did not win a single playoff series with that bullpen, but whatever. That aside, Raisel is still going to close. That's the reason we brought him back. Suarez will probably be a setup guy from everything that I've seen. And hey, if Iglesias struggles like he did at the beginning of last year, we actually have a backup plan now instead of Aaron Bummer. And I believe that should do it. The Braves play on Friday instead of today because I think we actually were the direct cause of that. But yeah, if we hit 50 subscribers on this channel, I'll start, editing, maybe going live more. I don't really plan on doing this consistently until I hit that point, just because it's not worth it. But if you enjoy, please subscribe, share, leave a like, all that.